Hey everybody, when we are looking at dyslexia, there are two things that can specifically be happening. And, there's issues with the phonological awareness. So there is like a sounding out kind of a phonological awareness kind of component. And there is a visual component. So right now I'm going to focus on the visual component. And then I'll do another video on phonological awareness and like what you might be able to do to help with that. But as far as the vision, so most people, when you take your child, when you think that there's a visual issue, it's usually, you usually will notice because maybe the kids are squinting or whatever, and you take them to the eye doctor, they get their eyes checked and get their glasses. That is an acuity issue. That is an issue that has to do with the lens and maybe the retina or other things that are actually have to do with the physical structures of the eye, like astigmatism and that type of thing. But there are developmental vision problems, and so you might not be aware, but there is a profession called a developmental optometrist, and what they do is they look at vision and how it relates to learning and development. But there's different, some other vision things that most people, even teachers, are not aware of. One of the things is, so let's just start with one thing. So some kids have trouble, okay, let's say, I don't know if you've heard of Irlen syndrome. Irlen syndrome is where you might have heard of, let's say you use cover overlays. What's happening with Irlen syndrome is kids, they don't even realize it's a thing because they think it's normal, but kids might be seeing letters moving around. They may see, the more they focus, they may see a spiral of letters. If you go on to like Irlen syndrome, I don't know, I guess .com or something, they usually, those types of websites will usually have kind of a visual representation of what it might look like. I have a book or something that has like some things that what it might look like for a child, and kids just literally think it's normal because they didn't know anything else. So people don't know to ask them, when you see these words, do they stay straight or do they move around? And as much as you don't want to feed them like an idea, if you just kind of matter-of-factly just kind of ask like what they see, they'll kind of say, yeah, it looks a little blurry, or yeah, these letters just kind of move around. And if you ask them to describe it, they'll be pretty descriptive, or that they start to get blurry the more they focus on it. And so using color overlays can be very helpful. There is a really good website called nrsi.com, and that website has like a set of like 24 overlays that you can order. And I used to, as a math specialist, I used to actually assess my reading specialist. She would send the kids to me and I would assess them, and then I would actually order and buy the specific cover overlays that would go for that child. So what would happen is there's a whole system, so I'm just kind of barely explaining, but you can put the cover overlay over the reading material, and the right color just makes everything kind of settle. Now, that being said, SSS or Irlen syndrome, we call it Irlen syndrome, but SSS is scotopic sensitivity syndrome, and that's what's going on. And it's actually a sensitivity to the light. Some kids just need a gray overlay. It's the white is too bright, but what that is it's related to the brainstem, that reticular activating system that I don't even remember if we've talked about on here. I've talked in the last few days, talked on so many forums and was teaching a class. I don't remember who I said what to. But in the brainstem, you have a filtering system called the reticular activating system. And sometimes it filters in too much and you don't get enough stimulus, and sometimes it doesn't filter enough and you get too much. So SSS is really related to that, and which is related to the moral reflex. So the moral reflex is that startle reflex that the babies have. And so that can be startled by head movement or by sound, sight, touch, any of the senses. So really it's just the brainstem is like hypersensitive. So you can find somebody who practices LEAP, which is a brain integration program that can help minimize remove the energetic blockages, and I do that. A lot of people do that. You can maybe find somebody. It can be done either virtually or in person, and or you can. For Moro, you can integrate the Moro reflex, so primitive reflex integration. So in the last video, I kind of mentioned that I teach Bloomberg rhythmic movement training, and that is for integrating primitive reflexes. So if you find a practitioner of some sort that integrates, that does reflex integration, then that would be good too. And anyway, so that's just one vision issue. That's the SSS. That's a little bit more complex. And then we have some of the other visual systems that maybe aren't quite so complex, but we have eye tracking. We have smooth pursuit, so being able to track across the midline smoothly. We have like convergence, being able to, as something gets near, being able to converge the eyes. We have the saccades, which are literally moving from one to the other. Yeah, it seems like it's similar to smooth pursuit, but it's not. Smooth pursuit is you're tracking something that's moving across, and saccades are going from one to the other without over or undershooting the object or target. And then we have we have convergent. We have accommodation. That's like near far vision. So I'm writing at my desk, and then I'm looking from my desk, and I'm looking out into the distance at the whiteboard, and then coming back and being able to focus from one to the other. That's accommodation. And these different visual skills do not happen in the same part of the brain. Some of them happen in the cerebellum. Some of them happen up in the frontal lobe, or in the motor cortex, or in the visual cortex, or whatever. And sometimes, and probably oftentimes, different parts of the brain obviously are lighting up. But for example, that over and undershooting is in the cerebellum, and anyway, different. I have a presentation somewhere where I literally have a brain and I have it mapped out, like where everything is. We have binocular vision. So binocular vision is like when my son, when he was 7, would say, "Oh, you know what? I just see 2 of everything," and it's like, okay, I know that's not good. So I took him to the developmental optometrist, and he did have a binocular vision issue, but when he was reading, they were surprised that functionally he was doing really well, that he wasn't performing the way that his vision appeared, that it looked. So, but all these eye exercises, I have sat in on, so I sat in for a while because I was going to be like, I don't know, I don't know what you want to call it, a coach, an assistant, a provider, or something. I was going to this local cognitive program, and I was shadowing them because I was going to kind of take over and do some of the sessions, just because they were doing cognitive stuff and I liked it. But I didn't end up doing that, partly because of what I'm going to tell you. But they were doing a lot of work with eye tracking, which is great. I was great that they were addressing eye tracking issues. The problem is that when you're going to address eye tracking issues, eye tracking in the vestibular system is actually very much related. The vestibular system is your balance system. It is it's in your inner ear, and your eye, the vestibular nuclei in the brainstem is shared with your eyes and your ears and a couple other things. So when you're going to work on eye tracking, instead of working on eye tracking 10 minutes a day for 6 months or whatever, I don't know, until they stop doing it, you should activate the vestibular system first, and then you work on the eye tracking skills. It's a lot more efficient. So But also, all of those eye tracking issues are related to primitive reflexes, and so they didn't know, of course, also about primitive reflexes. But for example, binocular vision, asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. Accommodation, symmetrical tonic neck reflex. Saccades, asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. Okay, so we have so if we address the reflexes, just like the Moro and SSS, if you address the reflexes, then those vision issues can also be integrated at the same time. Because you can, as you're integrating the reflex, you can address the vision at the same time, and then that can be integrated. Anyway, that is, to make a long story short, too late, the visual issues related to ATNR, we've mentioned before, ATNR has a lot to do with the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. These visual issues have a lot to do with asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. And so if you do have a child who experiences dyslexia or know somebody who experiences dyslexia, besides just reading therapy, now any other therapy that they're experiencing, if they're going for tutoring or whatever, more power to you. But at the same time, you need to also address these reflexes if you want that therapy to be more impactful, efficient, faster. I don't know, all those kind of things. So if you have any questions and you would like to join me on a live Q&A, please go up into the pinned announcements and see when my next Q&A is going to be. You can always write a question or comment below, but I'd love to get to know you, and because I don't see any of you, but everybody can see me, so just come on, ask questions, and until our next live Q&A, I will see you later. Bye-bye.